Could the food in your kitchen trigger a devastating stroke?
Don't wait for the warning signs. Stroke surgeons see the damage daily, and they point to 5 common food groups.
My goodness, 5 common food groups, right? And these aren't just healthy choices that we always talk about. They are actively clogging your arteries as we speak and pushing you towards a stroke as we speak right now.
So this is the forbidden list you need to know. What are they? Stay tuned. Your next meal could be critical.
So we're going to begin with some real life stories, of people we actually know who had strokes. When we talk about stroke, everybody thinks it's far-fetched, but we're gonna talk about some real life stories.
Yes, so these strokes range from a TIA to mild ischemic events that may lead to full stroke, to major strokes in which the people died.
My goodness, we're talking about real life. I'm not talking about stories. People we know who died. So, right, I'm going to start off myself here talking about a true story. My dad actually had a TIA, what we call transient ischemic attack. That's the beginnings of a stroke. If you have heard about it before, if you have that, it means that if you don't take care, you're going to get a full-blown stroke. So my dad had a TIA, and he could not control his blood pressure for the most part, and he deteriorated from that point on until his passing. Because though he didn't get a full-blown stroke, that TIA was a weakening point. I mean, I could see he had some cognitive impairment after that event. Even though he had mobility in his limbs, he was able to walk around, and do everything, speak and everything, which you obviously know is not a full-blown stroke. But that led to some cognitive impairment. His memory got really bad. His coordination of certain things didn't work out right. And from that point on, even convincing him to take his medication became a problem, and eventually he passed due to complications from hypertension and other things that were related to the TIA. So it's not something that we're joking about here.
And I know of one pastor from our community, probably in his early 50s, that passed away recently in Europe due to major stroke that hit him while he was delivering a sermon.
Wow.
Was preaching in church.
In the middle of church, this pastor, collapsed and eventually died. And both of us knew him. He was somebody we actually knew in person. I knew in person. I used to meet him in a place where we did music because he was recording music, gospel music and all that. Very young pastor. He passed away.
Around 50s, right?
Yes, in the 50s, due to stroke complications. I mean, a major stroke. There was no complication. The complication was death right there. Very young, 50s, So it is something that we don't have to joke with. Definitely something that is serious. That's why we want to make sure you stay put as we go on with this discussion. We also lost a member of our church, actually, to a major stroke recently, a couple of years maybe ago. Also somebody we both knew, but he passed away after a major stroke attack. He was in ICU and eventually passed away. So it is people that we know, but it is not just these people who have gone with stroke or who have become incapacitated. There are others that we have heard that we don't know. We just heard, in the community, this person died, we never knew. But these people are people we actually met and knew that passed due to stroke. So I don't take this show for granted, right? All right, so what if I told you the biggest stroke triggers aren't just bacon or burgers? They are hiding in your primary and your pantry right now. Your pantry may be full of all these things.
So we are going to discuss 5 worst foods forbidden by stroke surgeons that many of us are still eating every day.
My goodness, 5 worst foods that are forbidden. And yet, you and I, well, I am not because I know about them. Come on, man. But most people are eating these daily, not having any thought about them. Maybe they think they are doing the right thing, not knowing, but unfortunately, they are eating to get a stroke. And it sounds too harsh, but that's the case. And having seen people pass away, people have TIAs in our own community, it is not far-fetched to make it that blunt, because we want people to take this, what we're talking about, very seriously, right? All right. So with that, let's dive in. And we said 5 foods. So we're going to first start with the first food group, which I call the high sodium foods. And for example, we have foods like the deli meats, as well as, bacon, which are rampant. People like their bacon, but they are full of salt. And salt primarily is from, sodium primarily is from salt. If you are talking about sodium, you're talking about salt. So it's not something we don't know about, something we eat all the time. But in excess, we're going to have problems with, hypertension and the other things. So I think that we have to be very careful. So that's the first food group, and it's probably the most direct contributor to high, blood pressure. High blood pressure, mostly caused by high amounts of sodium in our diet, which eventually also leads to stroke. All right, you want to help me out here?
Yeah. So, how does it work?
How does it work? Yes.
Okay, let's go. So when you consume too much sodium, your body retains extra water to try and dilute it, because you have excess sodium in your body. So this increases the volume of blood circulation in your blood vessels, which in turn increases your blood pressure against the artery walls.
Definitely. So you have increased volume because you are withholding salt. I think we mentioned this before. God is, He makes everything perfect. If He wants your blood volume the taste of your blood to be one way, and you consume so much salt, the taste cannot change. He has to withhold, or your body has to withhold more water, so that the taste of your blood would be the same. Not that we are talking about vampires here, right? Right? The taste of your blood should not change regardless of how much salt you eat. So if you have so much salt or so much sodium, then obviously your body has to withhold water. And withholding the water is where the problem comes in. You increase your blood pressure against your artery walls because of all the salt you are withholding. And over time, this sustained blood pressure damages the artery walls and significantly raises the stroke risk that we are talking about. And so sodium is hidden in so many foods that we eat daily. So many foods we eat have sodium actually hidden in them, salt in them. Right?
Yeah, so precisely, we are just not talking about the salt shaker. Just think about it. We are talking about processed foods that contain a lot of salt. Canned soup. We have the sauces. We have canned vegetables that is full of salt. We have the frozen diners out there that is full of salt. And the packages are snacks of chips and pretzels, all under our processed foods.
And they have
a lot of salt and sodium that will definitely increase your risk for stroke.
Processed foods. Think about processed meats too. We'll talk more about processed meats later, but things like deli meat, as we mentioned, and bacon are loaded with sodium. You want to have your egg, bacon and egg, your morning breakfast. Think about the salt. Talk about fast foods, and then restaurant foods too. They contain a lot of, sodium in amounts that can easily raise your blood pressure if you are not looking or if you are not paying attention.
And if you're not paying attention to the sauces like the ketchup, the salad dressings, and the soy sauce, the additives. So it's not just the shaker salt, like you pour salt, you see it.
That's so obvious, right?
Yeah, so that one that you want to avoid it. But what about the additives, other things that you add to your meal? Some of them are full of sodium to the highest point that you just want to pay attention. So I think you should aim for 1,500 milligrams per day, right? So you have to aim less than 23 milligrams per day. 2,300 milligrams per day.
But if you have a heart condition, then you have to actually go lower. Example, if you already have hypertension, you should look for less than 1,500 milligrams of salt or sodium per day, or you have a heart disease. Obviously, you need to reduce your salt intake to less than 1,500 milligrams. But for the most part, if you are healthy and you can cut back to 2,300 milligrams per day, that's okay. It looks like not so much, especially if you do the numbers. But when it hits your tongue and it doesn't taste that well, remember that you are living for something. It's not just always the salt. You got it. Come on, man. You got to sacrifice something for the long haul, right? You can't just assume that you can eat your cake and have it, And the good thing is that sometimes when you do these changes, your body or your tongue gets used to them, and it doesn't taste bad anymore.
Right.
But if you don't try, you would think that, this food doesn't taste good, this doesn't taste good, and then before you know, you are eating too much salt and increasing your potential for stroke because of increased blood pressure. So that is one. Now let's go to food number 2. The second food. So the first food, we want to make sure that you are keeping up with us. The first food group is your sodium or high sodium foods. The second food group is unhealthy fats. Unhealthy fats. We talk about artificial fats that include trans fats and also excessive amounts of saturated fats. Those are all bad, unhealthy fat sources that we eat daily in our foods. These are major culprits when it comes to high cholesterol and plaque buildup. You cannot avoid these foods. High trans foods as well as high saturated foods. They are the reasons why we have cholesterol buildup and the narrowing of your arteries, including those in your brain. If the pipes in your body which carry the blood are full of these plaques because you are eating trans and high saturated foods, then your risk for stroke escalates. You're going to have a higher risk for stroke compared to somebody who doesn't eat these foods. So as we go forward, we're going to mention some of the examples of these foods.
Yes, so if you consume so much trans fats, saturated fat, and you build the plaques, that plaques build up is exactly what restricts blood flow or break off and cause a blockage leading to stroke. So in order to avoid stroke, you have to avoid your body producing plaques. Because if you build the plaques over a long period of time, a time comes that it breaks off. And when it breaks off, it travels, and that can lead to stroke. So stroke is not something that hit you like
all of a sudden,
right? It builds up slowly based on the foods that you are consuming. So we have to be careful and be intentional about the kinds of foods that you eat. So the second forbidden foods is what trans fat and saturated fat. It's something that you have to be consciously ban it from your food and from your diet.
You have to consciously ban them from your food and your diet. Why? Because they are known. This is proven. It's not like we're making it up. If you go to the literature, you can find it. That people who eat so much trans fats, and we're going to tell you what they are, as well as saturated fats, excess saturated fats, those people have high incidence of strokes. So if you're eating these foods that we're going to mention that carry them, then you can take it to the bank that at some point in your life, God forbid, you will change. So you're not going to get a stroke. You're not going to get a stroke after watching this. You are going to stop them, and so you won't get a stroke. But if you don't, then your risk for stroke, and actually not just a stroke, a heart attack also increases dramatically. And that's what we want to avoid, right? So what are some of the artificial trans fats? These are the worst offenders. They are the worst offenders, right? They raise your LDL cholesterol, and then at the same time they decrease your HDL. So the LDL cholesterol is the good cholesterol, and the HDL cholesterol is LDL cholesterol is the bad cholesterol, and the HDL cholesterol is the good cholesterol. So while the trans fat is increasing your bad cholesterol, which is the LDL, they are also decreasing your HDL, the good cholesterol. And so it's a lose-lose situation. Lose-lose situation. That's why it's largely banned in some foods. A lot of foods you don't see trans fats in there, but they sneak them in there some way, somehow. And true foods that are partially processed, partially hydrogenated oils. I don't want to be ahead of myself. We're going to mention some of the examples, and I'll let Gifty actually start.
Yes, so these trans fats can be found in fried foods like donuts, French fries.
Come on, man. French fries, right? French fries. They taste good, but they got the trans fats because the oils they use.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
The French fries, and certain margarines.
And did you say donuts too?
Donuts.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. The morning donuts, the round one with a hole in the middle.
Some of them fried too, right?
Yeah, so you have to be careful. And certain margarines.
And then shortenings too.
Yeah, and many commercially baked goods like pastries, cookies, and crackers. So those are the things that you have to pay attention to. They are out there. It maybe is in your pantry right now that we are talking.
We buy them. We buy them.
Buying them.
Some people have margarines in their fridge as we speak. And if the margarine has all these trans fats, you got them right there. It's not like secret. We got them in our fridges all the time. Secretly or plainly, in plain sight. It's there. Yeah.
Yeah. So apart from the trans fats, we also have the saturated fats, which is primarily found in animal products. Excessive intake of saturated fat can increase your LDL.
The bad cholesterol again.
The bad cholesterol. So limiting these is crucial. It's something that you have to limit the intake. Even avoiding it completely, or we are saying that it's forbidden.
It's
right?
forbidden.
So it's not part of your diet at all. It's something that you have to go for.
But sometimes you cannot avoid it completely, which is okay. But as long as you are really, really conscious and deliberate about checking your food labels and your food sources, you can at least limit them to the minimal that you take. That way, you don't increase, because the key is excess of them.
Use,
if you know how much is not excessive, then you could potentially be eating your saturated fats, your animal fats. Because some of us cannot stop eating our meat and stuff. But the key is how much of these fatty meats are you eating? Like the fatty cuts of red meat. If you get beef, some of you who eat beef, you see the fatty cuts. Those are the places that are also tasty.
Right.
The turkey tail. What you got? Got other name for it? Chofi. Turkey tail, oily, fatty tail of birds, like chicken or turkey, right? And even the poultry skin. They are all full of saturated fats. If once a month you want to treat yourself to a turkey tail. Those of you who don't know turkey tail, fried turkey tail, come on, man. Don't go find out. Because it is addicting, right? It is addicting. Very fatty and fried. If once a month you can't stand the temptation, we'll give it to them. Don't you think we should?
Yeah,
we'll give it to them. But to have it, consistently or as something you eat all the time, that is where the problem comes in. That's where the problem comes in. And then, of course, whole milks or full fat dairy products, such as whole milks, right? Or even cheese and all those things. If it is full fat, there are sources where they say reduced fat or no fat. Those are good because saturated fats have been reduced to the minimum. So that is where we are bringing your attention to that. These foods, if consistently eaten, they are going to increase your risk for stroke. And we told you stroke is real, giving you examples of people we have seen in our community, people 50 and less, others 60, others 70, passing away or getting major hits with a stroke. So don't play with this, And that's also, even apart from those animal sources, we have a few plant sources like tropical, oils like coconut oil. It has some saturated fat, as well as palm oil. So if you are also the kind of person that said, as for me, palm oil is mine, watch out. Too much of palm oil can also lead to all those high amounts of saturated fats, which are eventually going to increase your LDL or bad cholesterol level, which then builds up plaques in your arteries, including those in your brain, and then breaking to cause a stroke. It's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah. So moderation is the key.
Moderation is the key. Come on, moderation. Moderation is the key.
Yeah, so foods are number 3. Food number 3. We talked about 2 already.
Yeah.
Right. So the third one that we want to talk about is sugary drinks and foods high in added sugars. Yeah. This is a huge one because it's tied directly to inflammation, weight gain, and insulin resistance. And the development or worsening of type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
Or in which is significant to stroke risk factors.
All of which are significant stroke risk factors. All of them. All of them are significantly going to increase your stroke risk. All the sugary foods you eat, the type 2 diabetes that you could get from the sugars, all of them put together or alone are going to increase your risk for a stroke. And so when we see stroke happening a lot these days, don't let us just blame the witches. Come on, man. Yeah. Don't just blame people and say that they don't take care of themselves. They probably take care of themselves, but they are eating really bad. All these sugars. Now it's become a fashion for some communities. If they eat and they don't have a sugary drink, bottle, soda or mineral next to them, it means they are not eating well. Who told you that? You are just increasing your risk of a stroke, risk of diabetes. In fact, your risk of inflammation and weight gain. All those are linked to that. And you don't want that to be something that you are in. Insulin resistance, and if you already have diabetes, you're going to have a hard time, managing your blood sugars, all because of these sugary drinks, sugar added drinks, some of which we choose, some of which they hide from us, right? And the impact on blood vessels and inflammation is something we cannot ignore. If you do them over and over, you will see the impact. Because high sugar intake promotes chronic inflammation throughout the entire body. Your whole body becomes inflamed just because you are dependent on sugar or sugary drinks all the time. Including even your blood vessels, they are all going to be inflamed. And remember, when your blood vessels are inflamed, they are going to eventually build up more plaques, because inflammation is the first thing that happens before plaques begin. Yeah, and then when plaques are formed, that stroke risk is already there. You are just a stroke number waiting to happen because of the build-up that has happened as a result of the inflammation and then the plaque formation and the plaques that can break off and clog or block a brain artery, refusing or stopping blood flow, or even cause a clot, which then breaks off and then goes into some other place. Now people, as very young people, getting pulmonary embolism, and all those things because of all these things that are happening. Sugary drinks, definitely something we want to.
Yeah, examples are everywhere. If you want to think about it, we have the sugary beverages. We have the sodas, we have the sweetened fruit juices, we have the sports drinks, we have the energy drinks, we have the sweetening coffee and the tea drinks everywhere. So, like, if you go anywhere to buy anything to drink, we have all these sodas, all these extra added sugar drinks in there for you to choose. If I were you, I would reach out for the water. That would be the first choice, because that inflammation, sometimes we don't think about it so much because we want something sweet. But this evening, this afternoon, this morning, depending on when you watch us, this sweet things, this added sugar, increase your chance for stroke. So we are saying that you have to avoid it. Is one of the 5 forbidden foods, the sodas. Some people say that, once in a while, it's okay. If you are disciplined and you can do once in a while, that's okay. But if you have them in your fridge and it's something that will make you feel good, you have your bowl, your meal, and on the side of the meal, you have soda, we are discouraging you today. Replace that.
Oh, come on, man. Replace that with water. Replace it. You don't need sugar to eat a burger. A burger should be tasting like a little bit of salt. But so I don't know how people are able to mix sweet and salt anyway.
Oh, it goes well together.
They go, oh, come on, man.
Sweet and salt.
Sweet and salty.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Unless you're done.
I'm done.
Yeah. So then the other things that we can also talk about in terms of the examples are sweets like candy, desserts, candies, cakes. And I've seen adults buy candy, packs of candy, and sometimes I ask them, oh, you're buying it for the kids in the house, right? As a funny thing. But if you're an adult and you're fond of eating candy, I know it's a habit you probably developed as a child, but we can stop. Adults, nobody should be eating candies for that matter. You know, if on Halloween your kids want candies, it's understandable. That's what the society is telling them to. But apart from that, you know, we shouldn't be indulging in candies and all this sweet stuff. You know, pastries, ice cream. Oh, come on, man, ice cream. Ice cream, as well as even sugary breakfast cereals. You buy the cereals from your grocery shops, and there's so much sugar. Not to talk about the sodium that is in there to preserve it from getting, bad. They got the sodium, they got the sugar, and everything in there is there to hurt you. So I don't know how else to say. You got to run away from it if you want to avoid strokes in the future.
Yeah, once in a while, maybe you can take the kids for ice cream treat, right? It shouldn't be like something in the freezer that every day.
Oh, some people have buckets of ice cream.
Oh, we used
in the fridge, especially as summer comes about.
Yeah, it's hot, right? You need something. So in place of the ice cream, you can create something more healthier. You know, you can blend the fruits and freeze them. You know, so they can reach out for the healthy alternative than the sugary and the trans fat, ice cream out there. We can always
and alcohol too. Some sweet alcohols, as we see this man drinking the alcohol on the YouTube feed, some alcohols, all those contain sugar. And this cholesterol plaque filling right there. So this nice brain we're seeing is going to be clogged out, and a heavy stroke can just destroy this person's life, just like that.
And sometimes the ketchup and the barbecue sauces, the flavored yogurts, the granola bars and all that, they also have hidden sugars. Maybe in your mind, you don't think that you are eating anything sugary unless you learn how to read the label.
That's a skill that everybody has to learn. Hidden
added sugars in there. Overall, it may not taste so sweet, so you wouldn't think that you are consuming all these extra sugars. But if you read the label, you see how much sugar is in each item that you are buying. The granola bars, overall it's supposed to be healthy. But the sugar content is so high. So stuff like that you can try and avoid it in your diet, and that will definitely help reducing your chance of getting stroke. Definitely.
That's very important that we start reading the labels as one of the ways to do it. So let's hit our fourth food group that also leads to massive strokes, for which reason the surgeons who do brain surgeries about stroke, black clots in the brain, they warn us not to eat. And that fourth food group is processed meat. Processed meat, come on, man. Processed meat. It is another huge one, We touched on it earlier on when we talked about sodium, but the risk goes beyond just the sodium, the processed meats. Remember deli meat and stuff that we mentioned? They are all part of it. Yeah.
So what else make them problematic? They contain high amounts of saturated fat in addition to the sodium, right? Contributing to cholesterol issues. Aside the sodium, it also have a trans fat, saturated fats are also in there. That will affect your cholesterol levels.
My goodness. Apart from the sodium, so one kind of food helping you to get stroke, processed meats, your delis, your hot dogs, your salamis, and all those sausages and stuff. Apart from the salt that is going to raise your blood pressure, they also have these saturated fats that are also going to increase your cholesterol level. one food giving you two major risks
I think
for stroke.
there is more.
There's even more. The preservatives.
Yes.
I think we're going to hit on that later.
Yeah.
So there is more. And we cannot continue to eat these foods, especially as we grow up. If you're hitting your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, oh, come on, man, you got to stop. You got to stop. You had some life you didn't know when you ate them, but you can't keep doing that. It is not going to be something that you actually are going to benefit from. So definitely stop. And if you are watching, people in TikTok, I saw some loves and need you to hit the follow and more loves and whatever else you do at TikTok, and those on YouTube too can do the same. We don't have any comments yet. You can also share your comments and your thumbs up and everything else that you do, so that we can also reach more people for that matter. All right, so continue on that same line. The processed meats also contain preservatives like nitrates as well as nitrites, which have both been linked to inflammation and potential damage to blood vessels. Those two they have already been linked. It's not like it may be. It's already linked. There's a link there for those nitrates and nitrites causing inflammation and damage to your blood vessels. The combination of high sodium, unhealthy fats, and these preservatives actually make them particularly risky for cardiovascular health, which is your heart and your pipes. And then your pipes are in your brain, right? So then also your brain leading to what? Stroke. So we don't want anybody to end up in stroke or heart attack for that matter because of processed meat.
So what specific foods fall under this category we are talking about, right? So we are talking about bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli meats like ham, salami, and processed turkey breast.
Oh man, processed turkey breast. Sometimes
pepperoni.
Oh my goodness. Pepperoni. Those who like pepperoni pizzas,
we have the
right?
beef jerkies, which also has all these bad things that we are talking about. So we have to eliminate these foods in order to prevent stroke from hitting.
If you really want to avoid strokes, you got to eliminate these foods or at least reduce them to the bare minimum so that your risk for strokes and heart attacks, for that matter, will not increase.
Yeah. So when do we even try to consume these foods? We used to just go for your plain egg, like we recommended avocado and your whole grain bread. But some people go to the extent of adding bacon, adding sausage, all these extra fat. And the sausage and the bacon are processed foods. And we are saying that they contain excess salt that is not healthy for you. They contain preservatives. The preservatives, the nitrates and the nitrites, that is not healthy for you. And it also contains extra saturated fat that can hit your cholesterol level. So just stay clear on all these processed foods. If you're doing a pizza, why do you want to add something that is going to harm you and your kids? The pepperoni.
Pepperoni.
It's so salty.
Or sausage.
It's so salty, So I don't know, because of the way that we eat, maybe our tongue get used to the salt that we don't realize how much sodium we are consuming. So it's something that we definitely have to avoid, the pepperoni and the bacons and the sausages.
Yes, definitely. All right, so finally, let's talk about the fifth food, or the food number five.
Yeah, I think the last one, right? So the final one is refined carbohydrates and grains.
Refined is the key, right?
Yes, refined. So these are grains that have had most of their fiber and nutrients are stripped away during processing.
Wow.
So it falls under processed foods, because of its refining. We take away all the extra fibers and the things that will make it healthy to a point that is no more healthy. So that's the last food that we will try as much as possible to reduce the consumption to avoid getting stroke.
So basically, we have talked about processed meats, and then we're talking about processed carbohydrates. You know, if you want to think about it that way, you know, like the sweet alcohol that this gentleman is drinking on our screen, you know, it is
Added
processed.
sugar, right?
Yes, added sugar, and processed carbohydrate is what? Sugar. You know, so it is something that we have to watch out for. How do they increase your stroke risk? We showed you how the processed meats do, but what about the grains, processed grains and refined refined carbohydrates? They also cause rapid spikes in blood sugar levels and also insulin levels, you know, and over time, this can lead to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes if you don't already have it, and then weight gain, and the final one being inflammation. So you are basically, because you stripped off those fibers, your body picks them up so quick that they end up all in your blood, and your blood sugar goes up. That's the simplest way to describe this as possible. If you are eating processed or refined carbohydrates, such as refined flour, refined grains, refined wheat, whatever grain, if it's refined, you are giving it completely into your blood. If the processing happens, you are making it increase your blood sugar. And as you know, high sugar leads to inflammation. Of course, inflammation will lead to plaque formation, and plaque formation will lead to strokes when the plaques break off. So it's just direct right there.
So they lack the beneficial fiber found in whole grains, right, which helps regulate blood sugar and cholesterol.
Right. So if we put, let's just bring the analogy. If we put two foods of the same source, you know, for example, what grain comes to mind? Say, let me just use wheat, just wheat for example. If you are eating processed wheat and I'm eating whole 100% non-processed wheat, even though we are both eating wheat, just because yours is processed, you are going to get a higher amount of blood sugar than I am. So the only difference is that you removed the husk, you removed the fiber, and you made it more poisonous. So your body is getting all the sugar into your blood, and that begins a chain that eventually may increase your stroke risk compared to somebody who eats it whole. So processing is dangerous. So for all the foods, we cannot mention every food on this show, but if you think about it, every food that has been processed passed through some channel to make it either whiter or purified or polished, especially like perfumed rice. It's polished, clean, and then they add I don't know, do they add perfume? What do they add? Come on, man. And then you are eating rice, but you can see that this is unnatural, very unnatural, so processed, pure clean. Even before you cook the rice, you put it in water, and you are not going to see any dirt coming. It's so clean. That is so completely processed that you're going to jack up your blood sugar in a bit just as soon as you eat it. And no matter how much exercise you do, as we see on the screen, you are going to basically fall victim to increased sugars, which eventually will lead you to a stroke, you know, from all the processes that we have said. So some common examples of these processed grains and processed carbohydrates are white bread. Come on, man. How many of you eat white bread? White rice, as I mentioned. And then, you know, pasta, regular pasta, which is made from white flour, you know, refined flour used to make pasta. And then, of course, sugary breakfast cereals that we talk about. You know, it could be Cheerios, it could be whatever, but if it is processed, which they always are, you're going to get all the sugars in them, you know. And then, of course, they also add sugar to it if it's that kind of thing.
And also, if we take them as whole, right? If we take them as whole, you were saying that the good stuff has been taken, but if you take them whole, it means that you have this fiber in there that is going to get rid of the excess cholesterol, and it's going to help you release the food, the sugar into your system slowly. You know, the glucose is going to be slowly released into your system because you are eating the whole form of it instead of the processed or the polished form. So some of these foods that we are trying that you limit the intake is the bagels, you know, the white ones. the pastries, the muffins that are made from white flour is something that you want to avoid. And some of the crackers and the pretzels also have these ingredients in them that is not healthy for you.
Not healthy at all. Processed foods, processed carbs and grains, right? All right, so choosing whole grains instead of, those ones, kind of like eating brown rice, steel cut oats and quinoa, and then whole grain pasta. If you like your pasta, you can still have your pasta. But the whole grain pasta, right? They provide the fibers that you need and the nutrient support that are actually better for your blood sugar control than just the processed ones.
And I think last time we were trying to buy this English muffin, and we looked around and we saw that there is a whole grain English muffin. Instead of going for the white polished ones, the white flour ones, you go for the whole grain, which comes with all the extra benefits. One thing that we have to know is that sometimes the calorie may be exactly the same. The amount of calorie in the whole grain and the white bread, when you read the labels, may be the same. So don't think that, it's the same amount of calorie. Why don't I go for the tasty ones, right? You have to go for the whole grain form, which is less tasty because of the benefits that comes with it. It has extra fiber that can help regulate your cholesterol and help the release of sugar into your bloodstream more steady than going for the white flour form of it.
Definitely. Right, so now let's quickly recap those 5 food groups that we discussed today. The first one is your high sodium foods.
Yeah, and the second one is the unhealthy fats,
such as the trans
and the excess saturated fats.
And then we also mentioned the sugary drinks and added sugars. Sugary drink, that's the drink that has already have sugar, and then some foods that are not supposed to be sugary, but they add sugar, hiding it in there somewhere, right?
Yeah. And the next one we talked about is processed meats and refined carbohydrates.
And then the last one we just talked about, that's the refined carbohydrates that we talked about. Come on, man. All right.
Yeah, so recognizing these foods and understanding why they increase risk is incredibly empowering. It allows you to make conscious choices every day to lower your risk of stroke and improve your overall cardiovascular health.
My goodness, you got to recognize them, and sometimes all you got to do is to pay attention to the labeling, and that's some of the things that you use to recognize. So remember, even small, consistent changes, can make a big difference over time. Reading labels, as I said, cooking more meals at home rather than to always go for the fast food joint.
The pizza,
focusing on whole foods instead of processed foods. Something as simple as that, will make a lot of difference. Those simple choices.
Yes, so we strongly encourage you to discuss your diet and individual stroke risk with your own healthcare provider. They can give you personalized guidance so that you'll be able to sustain whatever we are recommending.
Definitely. And so, if you actually found this information valuable, please give us a thumbs up or subscribe, as the screen incidentally is showing right now. Subscribe to our channel for more health insights. From the Life and Health Show, we come every Sunday evening, and we have lots of other videos also on our channel, our Dr. Oteng's channel. And until we see you again in the next video, we say, beloved, we wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Thanks for watching.